Ready, set, hut, hut!
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of gold and blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
The Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Boot. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the gold and blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the Country Roads Webcast, here for a live stream on April 6th, post-Spring Showcase edition, and we have a ton of news topics to get to. Steve and I are going to get together and try and record a podcast later this evening. Hopefully Brad's going to be able to join too. We're going to try and record an episode of the CRW podcast, talk about our Spring Showcase experience yesterday. We had some fun in Morgantown. We'll save that for that, so that's why I'm not going to touch too much on the Spring Showcase. Plus, I got to jet off to work here in a bit, but I will try and still get to any questions, comments you guys have if you all want to drop them in the chat. Appreciate you guys tuning in live, whether you're on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. If you're on Facebook or Twitch, encourage you to come over to the CRW YouTube so you can get access to the pre-recorded videos and podcast episodes where we keep you up to date on all things WVU sports, basketball, and football related. There, if you're on YouTube here, be sure to hit that like button. Helps a ton with that YouTube algorithm. Helps this video find more Mountaineer fans like yourself, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you get all these updates and directly into your feed. You know when we go live at times like this, which got to go live to try and get all this news covered here before I head off to work, because we have a WVU football recruiting update to get to. A really good addition to the 2026 class, which now has 4 recruits in it already committed to the Mountaineers, all on the offensive side thus far, but all some ones that are really talented and we're really excited about, so we got to talk about him. And then towards the tail end, I will do some basketball updates. We have transfer portal news, both a former Mountaineer announcing his destination, and then a couple of more targets that West Virginia is going after in the portal, and a possible Buck Harris update. Stay tuned for the basketball talk in the back half. So with no further ado, let's get to the WVU football recruiting update, because it was just, a couple of nights before the Spring Showcase. I was on here with you guys on a live stream talking about Legend Bay, how excited we were about that quarterback visiting, and he was, really talented and a good fit for the Rich Rodriguez offense. But of course, we knew West Virginia was all along also recruiting, Jryon Hughley as well, a legacy recruit tied to Jryon Sider. I believe he's the nephew there, former West Virginia quarterback, now the running backs coach, and a really good offensive assistant there at Penn State. And West Virginia actually got the commitment from Hughley this weekend, which I think a lot of people have been discouraged. Does that mean we're not going to get Legend Bay? Not necessarily. I think West Virginia still is in this class. They're not going to obviously turn him down if he wants to come to WVU. They'd love to have him as well. And from what I've heard, there's a great chance that West Virginia is going to go after 2 high school quarterbacks to add to this 2026 class anyway. Jryon Hughley is being recruited as a QB, but he's a great fit for the Rich Rod offense as well. Let's talk more about him, and we'll talk about his game, and I'll show you guys a couple of his highlights, and then I'll try and link in the video description the full video for you guys to check it out for yourself. But let's talk a little bit about this here let's get the recruiting update out of the way, and then we will talk some basketball in the back half of the show. And if you guys, like I said, got any questions, comments, throw them there in the chat. I'll try and get to some of those towards the tail end. Do got to try and make this one a little bit more brief. I do got to head off to work in a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about Jryon Hughley first. Here is his commitment that he announced on social media yesterday. 1,000,000% committed, or looks like to me, or 100,000, whatever. Too many zeros to count right now. But definitely fully committed, it seems like. We saw the classic Travis Trickett tweet go up, earlier, I think in the day. I want to say that was late Friday night when he put that up, and usually that signifies, that they've had someone commit, and it's kind of a silent commit at that point. You're just trying to figure out who it is, but the lead recruiters here were Travis Trickett himself and Rhett Rodriguez, so definitely makes it clear, and of course mentioning Pat White as well in the tweet makes it clear he is coming to play quarterback. He has listed as an athlete on most recruiting services, but definitely being recruited as a quarterback, and you'll see why when we pull up some of his highlights here momentarily. So there's the graphic for Jryon Hughley joining the Mountaineers recruiting class. So let's pull up our recruiting tracker here as we continue to try and keep up with this 2026 WVU football class. And we add Jryon Hughley's name into the mix. And it's funny enough, something that we talked about when we were excited about getting Travis Trickett back on the staff is we felt like that would mean West Virginia would do a good job recruiting in the South again. Florida and Georgia would be back. And boom, already you see Jafar G. Noel, a speedy receiver out of Florida, and now a quarterback, a talented legacy player at that, coming out of Florida as well, with the lead recruiter being Travis Trickett. So already we knew he was a great recruiter. That's paying off. This staff is full of good recruiters, and thus far they're doing a great job building the offense here on this 2026 class. It's very early in the process, so you will see some defensive commits added to this list in the near future, but definitely shaping up the offense well. Already a commitment at each of the skill positions now with the addition of Jryon Hughley, and I think they may not be done recruiting the quarterback position, but as more of these commits roll in, we'll continue to bring you recruiting updates here on the CRW. We've got videos out on each one of these guys in the past. Sam Hamilton, Jafar G. Noel, Jet Walker just uploaded a couple of days, and now here getting to feature Jryon Hughley. And one guy that does great features about these commits, of course, is Keenan Cummings. Like to share his Commitment 101 articles to learn a little bit about the commits when they land. Jryon Hughley here, we can talk about him being a 6'2", 170-pound quarterback from West Palm Beach, Florida, Cardinal Newman High School. Funny, my mom went to graduate from high school in West Palm Beach, actually. I have to ask her if she's familiar with that school next time I get a chance to talk to her. But he picked the Mountaineers over football programs including Florida State, Penn State, Pitt, North Carolina State, Minnesota, Indiana, and Boston College, and that's just a few. So some really high-level offers here for Hughley as well. As you can see, that's one thing that I like to use as a determining factor, more so than star rating and stuff sometimes, is obviously just doing your own research, watching the tape for yourself is the best way to find out if you feel like this guy's going to be a good player or not. Look at the stats a little bit, but also take into account the level that they're playing at. He plays in Florida. There's a lot of good football there. We know that. But really, I think one of the things you can hone in on is if you look at the offer list and you see, other power conference programs going after a guy, he's probably a pretty good player regardless of what the star ratings and all that, stuff try and say. And you can see here Florida State, Penn State, Pitt, NC State, Minnesota, Indiana, and Boston College. So right there, just a ton of other power conference programs that were after Hughley, who was coming off a season where he threw for over 1,300 yards and rushed for another 835 yards and 25 touchdowns. He was named the Palm Beach 4A, 1A football offensive player of the year last season. Honorees right there racking up. You see he's a 5.7 rating on Rivals, ranked as a top 50 quarterback, 3-star there here on Rivals. Like we said, nephew of Jawan Sider, so it is the nephew. That's what I thought it was. Took an unofficial visit back on March 29th and announced his commitment, I guess, officially on Friday was when that came in, because that's when Travis Trickett tweeted out that original gift, but Saturday is kind of when it became public. Like I said, 4th commitment in the cycle. A little bit about his skill set here, which we'll showcase some of his highlights in a second. You can take a look at a couple plays for yourself, but I encourage you to watch the full tape. Keenan Cummings says Hughley is athletic enough to extend the pocket and possess a strong arm to fit the football into tight windows down the field. Soft touch on the ball, while he is a very good runner and more than apt to stand in the pocket and distribute the football, throws a catchable football, and displays the ability to keep his eyes down the field to find pass catchers. So the running ability is there, but also the ability to extend the play and make something happen downfield, keeping those eyes downfield. That's a good attribute to have there. More than comfortable in an RPO-based offense, and it is an effective dual threat option that is going to be a strong fit for what Rich Rodriguez wants on the offensive side of the ball. And that's what I realized, the first time I saw this commit come in. I tried to sneak in a look at some of the highlights yesterday and knew I wouldn't be able to talk about it today with us being in Morgantown for the day. Didn't get home till, after midnight last night, but I think that he is just as good of a fit for the offense as Legend Bay. Legend Bay brings a bit more speed to the table, but Jryon Hughley has some really good plays you'll see here running the football. He may even be a better, at making people miss. We mentioned, Legend Bay has great contact balance, great speed. I think that that's still there. If you could land both of these guys, you want to talk about a grand slam, but either one of them is more than adequate to run Rich Rod's system, and I think we're getting some really good athletes to come in at this quarterback position and run Rich Rod's offense and make plays not only with their arm, but they're going to make plays in the run game as well. As they have speed, they have elusiveness, all of these quarterbacks that we've been recruiting, and that's the case again with Hughley, who is definitely going to be a fit here, as Keenan Cummings mentions in the article here. Hughley also possesses a good frame while still developing and has a lot of upside. Yeah, he's a little bit slender coming in, so obviously it's going to be a guy that is probably going to redshirt, go through that training program there with Mike Joseph, add some weight on, and then it's a guy that can make plays down the line in his career. But you just have to hope, fingers crossed, you can keep some of these young guys around. I know that in theory, both Jalen Henderson and Nico Marchio could return. And then you have, the young Scotty Fox, who we've talked about, has been doing great. He'll be back, and you're going to have a lot of young, talented quarterbacks that could really be a fit for this system here, with Hughley being one of those as well. As Keenan Cummings wraps up here, Hughley's dynamic with the ball in his hands and displays the ability to make people miss as well as pick up a bunch of chunk yards once he's able to get any daylight. He displays plus vision and possesses the speed to pull away from defenders either on design runs or when the play breaks down. A crafty runner, Hughley has the skill set to make people miss, but understands how to position himself to avoid contact and get up the field when carrying the football. And that's what I think he has here that's very nice, is his elusiveness. You're going to see here in some of these highlights. Has great speed as well. Don't sleep on his wheels either. He'll be great in this Rich Rod system. I really do like this commit a lot. So let's take a look here at a couple plays, and I'll try and link this in the video description. After the fact, you see starting it off right there with a perfect play, for the Rich Rod offense. That pops off the tape right away. Is the first play he's running is his own read, makes a great read, then makes the end miss by cutting inside, then finds a way to get outside, get to the green grass, and get up the field. There you see him making an arm tackle miss right there. Not going to be brought down by that. And then a couple of nice jukes in the open field. There's the elusiveness I was referencing there on a quarterback sweep style play. Rich Rod's going to run some of that Q power stuff as well. Here he is with the play action rollout, and there's what they're talking about with him being able to keep his eyes down the field while getting outside the pocket like that and hit a nice deep ball. You see some of the arm strength there. And then the last one we'll take a look at here is another nice ball hitting a man in stride. So that's about a minute's worth on his highlight. In just, the first 50 seconds of that huddle tape, you've seen kind of all the things that I was referencing there. His, ability to make people miss with his elusiveness, the good ability to have, enough speed to take it the distance and score the touchdown, the ability to keep the eyes downfield, and the strong arm, and he's a good accurate passer. And like I said, I'll link that in the video description after I finish the stream, so it'll be up there for you guys that are watching on the playback. You can click it in the description there and click that video and check out that whole huddle highlight tape if you want to check out Jryon Hughley, the latest addition to the WVU football recruiting class of 2026. Now 4 commits in there. We got tight end Sam Hamilton, receiver Jafar Jean Noel, running back Jet Walker, and quarterback Jryon Hughley. And the Mountaineers not done yet by any means. I suspect they're going to build a really good class here with a lot of really good recruiters as a part of this new coaching staff that they've established. So that's what I had for the football update. Let's get to the basketball side of things, and then I will catch up on some of y'all's comments before we wrap up here towards the end. Let's get the negative out of the way first, right? And one of the negative pieces is, of course, Amani Hansberry. We knew this would maybe be a possibility, committing to Virginia Tech following Chester Frazier, which, this makes you worry a little bit about what one thing we were talking about on previous streams is Sincere Harris possibly returning to West Virginia. The Mountaineers getting Buck Harris back, who we think his defense would be such a great fit for the Ross Hodge system. But I still think that there's a little bit of light at the end of that tunnel. We'll talk about that momentarily. But Amani Hansberry announcing on social media, as you can see, that he has committed to Virginia Tech. He was with Chester Frazier at Illinois. with him at WVU. Now we'll be with him again at VT. Hate to see it be, Virginia Tech a rival, especially for someone down here in the bottom part of the state like I am in the southern West Virginia here, where we're so close to Virginia Tech. There's a lot of VT fans I've always had to grow up around, so that fuels the rivalry around here more so, and hate to see they've taken so many of our coaches and players, but I do think Hansberry will be a good player throughout his career. He was really starting to come on towards the tail end of this season, but I think that there's still some hope for Sincere Harris as well. Let's talk about that here just a second after we pull up the transfer portal tracker here. We now know the destination of all the players that have transferred out, save for we're still waiting to see what happens with Buck Harris. But transfers out, you see, of course, DeVries, we knew would go to Indiana, Jonathan Powell to UNC, KJ Tanner to Murray State, now Monty Hansberry to Virginia Tech. We're waiting to see what's going to happen with Sincere, right? I think Virginia Tech's definitely, still something that's maybe a possibility for him. He probably has a lot of programs after him just for his defensive ability. But we do have some hope, things we've talked about on previous streams that, seem to be a good chance that he could come back. And then just yesterday, we saw this put out by College Basketball Jesus making a transfer portal prediction. He thinking that Sincere Harris is going to return back to West Virginia after finishing up his sophomore year, where he averaged 6 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. Lead on ball defender that would thrive under Ross Hodge, as we've talked about in the past. So, it's definitely more than rumors now. You got college basketball burners trying to predict him coming back, so I think there's definitely a lot of smoke behind it. We'll see if it happens. I think Hansberry committing to VT hurts that possibility a little bit because they may want to stay, teamed up. But also I think that Buck Harris fits with Ross Hodge better than Hansberry does, and I'm sure Buck Harris sees the defensive coach that we've brought in, and that's one thing that has him maybe pondering return. So I still got my fingers crossed, still holding out hope that Sincere could return to WVU. We'll see. And if there's any more news on that in the near future, keep you guys updated on that. Just like I'm going to keep you guys up to date on the transfer portal additions, the transfer portal targets that West Virginia is going after, so that soon we'll be adding names here to this transfer in list. We'll talk about one that I think has a good chance to be one of those first names added here. First up, as we talk about more transfer targets, and we've talked about now 20-plus guys that West Virginia's made contact with. We've got a couple more to talk about here, including one that I think has a good chance of transferring to WVU. It's a guy that we mentioned when Ross Hodge was first hired. It's the one that I said I hoped would come to West Virginia, and that is Brennan Lorient. I think there were two North Texas players that were eligible to transfer. This was the main get for me that I was hoping would come to WVU. We'll see if it pans out, but he has entered the transfer portal. We know that for sure. He's testing the NBA draft waters as well, but he's, as it states here, ridiculous athlete at 6'9", crazy vertical, pops as a rim finisher and shot blocker. But the last part of this is what interests us the most here. Expected to follow Ross Hodge to WVU if he withdraws from the draft, which would be great news. That would be a great, building block to start here for this transfer portal class is adding Brennan Lorient, who has experience in this system, experience with Coach Hodge. You'd love to get a start on that, a guy that can help other players around him learn the new system, learn the new terminology, everything involved in a Ross Hodge practice. Having someone that's, gone through that process and been around him and can help with that as a player and really, relate to the guys, that are his same age or similar age, I think would help a lot. Not to mention Brennan Lorient, super talented. I mean, the fact that he's testing the NBA draft waters shows that there's a chance that he could, be drafted in one of those first 2 rounds, which, shows the type of player that he is. I think that, he's likely going to return to college. I would say it's probably about 60-40. And if he does return to college, I think we got a great chance, which would be an awesome get. Brennan Lorient from North Texas, and it's a big, right? Something we didn't have a ton of this past season, so that would be a great start to the transfer class. So we'll keep an eye on that as we continue to go through these transfer updates, but we have another couple targets to discuss here as well. Let's pull these guys up because I think that we have an absolute 3-point marksman for one to talk about, and then another Grand Canyon player. Seems like we've targeted a couple of those as well, so let's talk about each of these guys here. Starting with the 3-point marksman, guys. Transfer from Chattanooga, Honor Huff. He's heard from multiple schools here. He told League RDY here on social media, St. John's, WVU, UNC, Kansas, Vandy, Auburn, Alabama. Has had Zoom meetings with Iowa and Florida State, Memphis, Xavier, Miami, Missouri, Seton Hall, Colorado, SMU, Ole Miss, Penn State, Maryland, VCU, South Carolina, Utah State, USF, and Loyola Chicago. He was first team All-SoCon, averaged nearly 17.5 points per game this season. We'll pull up his numbers, and I'll show you guys his three-point percentage, which I think is the most impressive thing. So obviously a ton of other players, people after him. He saw that extremely long list, which is to be expected when you're someone that averages that much scoring-wise. Those are hard to come by in the portal, but glad to see West Virginia is really swinging for the fences with a lot of these guys. We continue to discuss really good players that they've targeted, and, we did just get a football transfer from Chattanooga and Jordy Walker, who, played in this spring showcase yesterday. So maybe they have a relationship. Maybe that could give us an in here. Maybe Ross Hodge could say, hey, you want to come talk to Honor, tell him what you like about WVU? That would maybe help us. I don't know. Just to shoot a shot in the dark here I'm talking about, just to try and hopefully speak this into existence, because he would be a great pickup. Let's look at some of his numbers here as to talk about him. Then we have one more transfer portal target to talk about. Then I will get to some of your all's questions here before I wrap this thing up before too much longer. But Honor Huff, I know you're looking at 5'10", 168, man. That's not a lot of size, but a couple of things. He's from Brooklyn, New York. We know how tough those New York guards are, those New York players are, having a ton of those New York, New Jersey guys here at WVU over the years. They've been super successful. 15.2 points per game this season. Like I said, averaged nearly 17.5 the season before. But what really sets off his game and sets him apart is just his ability to be an absolute sniper from downtown. Take a look here. His field goal percentage already impressive enough, 42%, but you come down here, he's also shooting nearly 42% from the three-point line as well. That's ridiculous, guys. 82% free throw shooter also. Like we said, an absolute marksman there, as you can see with that three-point percentage on the season. So it would be a huge get, but a ton of players after Honor Huff. But we have another target to talk about here as well. Of course, this list continues to grow for the Mountaineers. It's been a long list that we've talked about recently, but I think this will excite people because it's another big. And we know that West Virginia needed bigs last year, didn't necessarily have them. Hansberry did a good job, battling down low, but, he was, 6'6", 6'7". Really, Ed Andre was the only height that we had, so we got our fingers crossed for good news on Brennan Lorian at 6'9". We're also targeting Duke Brennan at 6'10". We've talked about the 7-footer Arlen Obioha before, some other bigs. So it looks like West Virginia is, going to have multiple bigs on this roster, hopefully for the upcoming season. They're certainly, if not, it's not going to be from a lack of trying this time around. Duke Brennan, 6'10", 250 from Chandler, Arizona. He's a Grand Canyon transfer, averaged over 10 points per game and over 9 rebounds per game. As you can see here, that puts him in the top 25 rebounders in the country. So this is, a couple of guys that we've talked about in the past. West Virginia, we know in Ross Hodge's system, defense is going to be a key cog, but so is rebounding. And then West Virginia is going after two really good rebounders now that we've talked about in the past. The other one, I think, was on the most recent transfer portal target stream we did. I believe he was top 15, if not top 10 in the country in rebounds. Now Duke Brennan, a top 25 in the country rebound, and he's obviously a post up style player here with a nearly 65% field goal percentage. Probably means he's getting a lot of his off either those post up opportunities or a lot of putbacks, probably, especially with those 9 rebounds per game would be my guess, which would be great to have on this roster. Doesn't look like he's taking any threes, certainly hasn't even made any, so not necessarily getting it from shooting the basketball. It's definitely all inside scoring mostly here. This would be your paint player if you could land a Duke Brennan double-digit per game score, so nearly a double-double guy. The 9 rebounds per game is certainly a very enticing number. Would be a guy that you would definitely take on this roster here as you continue to try and build it. So Duke Brennan there, and let's see some of the other schools that he has heard from. He has heard from Ohio State, USC, Stanford, Iowa, West Virginia, DePaul, Villanova, Rutgers, Arizona State, Clemson, TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Seton Hall. So multiple other Big 12 programs, not as long of a list as the young man we just talked about from Chattanooga, but still some really high-power and high-profile schools in there after Duke Brennan as well. So West Virginia has strong competition for a lot of these guys, but West Virginia's made plenty of contacts. You know, we've talked about probably, 25-plus guys on the streams over the past couple of weeks. So very soon we're going to be adding guys to the transfer-in list, and as soon as those guys start being announced, we'll come back at you with further transfer portal updates for the Hoops side as Ross Hodge looks to build his first roster here for WVU. But just to recap for some people that may have came in late, talked about Jryon Hughley, the latest addition of the 2026 WVU football class. Now 4 members to that, all on the offensive side, a tight end, a wide receiver, a running back, and now a quarterback, respectively, in Jryon Hughley, who I think is a great fit for the system. Transfer portal-wise, Amani Hansberry commits to Virginia Tech. We're keeping our eyes on Sincere Harris to see if he could potentially return to WVU, and then more targets added to the list as West Virginia looks to get those transfers in, and Brennan Lorient could be the first name added, depending on what type of feedback he gets from the NBA. But if he doesn't, go to the NBA draft, it's believed he's probably going to come to WVU and follow Ross Hodge, which would be a big pickup for us, kickstarting this transfer portal class. But that's what I had for you guys. Appreciate you guys that tuned in live here, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Those of you that tuned in on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the CRW YouTube, subscribe here so you can get the pre-recorded videos, podcast episodes. We've put out a ton over this past week, and there's still going to be a ton of updates continuing to come out in the future, as both WVU football is going to be making roster moves here in about a week and a half or so, now that spring has commenced with the spring showcase, and of course basketball's going to be building this roster and building this staff under Ross Hodge, and we'll keep you up to date on the CRW here. You guys that watched on YouTube, whether live or on playback, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, help us out with that crazy YouTube algorithm, help this video find more Mountaineer fans like yourself so they can subscribe to the channel and stay up to date as well. I'm going to catch up on some of your all's comments here, and then we will call it a stream. As like I said, I unfortunately do have to jet off to work here. What's going on, Nathan? Channel member. Good to see you as always, brother. Couchburner says, just got in here. What's up? Any news on if Dom got some time in the showcase? Yeah, Dom did, man. We're going to wait till tonight. I'm supposed to hopefully try and record with Stephen and Brad, fingers crossed. But either way, we're going to be putting out a podcast episode in the next couple of days, talking about the spring showcase, our experience yesterday up there in Morgantown, which was fun. Dom did get some time, man, and he had some great plays. He got behind the defense multiple times. A couple of them didn't connect, a couple of them did. But I was impressed, of course, with Dom Collins, man. Super fast guy, and looks like he's got some speed, man. I think he's got a great future ahead of him for sure. That speed we knew was there, but you definitely got to kind of see it in action for the first time in the spring game, and every time, man, he was matched up one-on-one. He was beating the defender for sure. Dime Drawer 4 says we beat out Penn State. Nice. Yeah, I was surprised, man. You would think, with Jawan Sider, his uncle being there as the coach, they had kind of the inside track. But he's, been a WVU fan because when he was growing up, Jawan was here on the staff at WVU. I think he even posted pictures you can see on social media of him, in a Geno Smith jersey and stuff. So that was kind of helping us out. And, of course, I think the great staff we have recruiting. When you got Travis Trickett, Pat White recruiting you on your visit, that's going to help sell you as well. So we beat them out, and we beat out Pitt, as Couchburner said as well. Dime Drawer 4 said, when will the basketball team start landing some transfers? I think, you could see news on that as early as today. I mean, next couple of days, we're going to start learning about some of these first commits, in my opinion, I think, for sure. The dead period's happening right now, so maybe if they're waiting to have men on visits before getting the commits, that could be the only thing holding it up. But that'll be, done in the next week, about a week's time now, I think. They can't visit or send anybody out to visit. They can still make calls. That's why you're getting news on the contacts. But I think commits are going to start happening soon. Fingers crossed. One of the first ones could be good news on Sincere Harris. And then I'd love to get good news on Brennan Lorient as well. Couchburner says, excited to see Nico do his thing, and the future looks bright with these guys. Yeah, the quarterbacks looked really good, man. We got a lot of good quarterbacks that can all really run this offense, I think. So that was really one of the bright spots. The running game looked great with the running backs that we saw. Of course, Jaheim was held out. A lot of the starters were by design there, which you guys can see. I did get the autographed jersey back from Jaheim and framed it here to put in the background. You guys know, huge Jaheim White fan. I think he's set to have an amazing season here on this Rich Rod offense. Really going to put up some crazy numbers. But I think the run game looks great. Passing game still needs a little bit of work. Offensive line probably still needs a good bit of work as well, which is kind of some things that we expected. But also, still new to this scheme, new to this system, trying to adjust to that up-tempo style. I think's why they got some false start penalties there on the offensive line. But Cam Vaughn looked great at receiver. I thought all the running backs really looked good, and like I said, all the quarterbacks as well for sure. Dom Jorfor right in Q says, seen that Cam Vaughn had a long touchdown catch in the Gold Blue Showcase. Haven't seen any clips yet. Hopefully they put some up. I'll try and share some in a future stream when I got more time as well, and we can really talk extensively about the Spring Showcase. But yeah, Cam Vaughn was as advertised. I think he's going to have a key role at the receiver position in this offense, as expected, right, for sure. Dom Jorfor, Sincere Harris is a blue-collar WVU guy. I hope he comes back. Yeah, he's such a great fit, especially for what Ross Hodge is going to do. Hope he does too. Fingers crossed, man. Whisker says he also wants to see Harris come back. He's fun to watch. And Couchburner agreed. He's a good defender. Well said, guys. Well said. And we'll keep our eyes on that one, see where he lands. Hopefully he does come back and return to the Mountaineers. I think we're going to get news on those transfers here in short order. And when it comes in, I'll keep you up to date here on the CRW, just like I'll continue to keep you up to date on this 2026 WVU football recruiting class. Like I said, stay tuned. We'll be talking about the Spring Showcase more in the near future. Had a great experience up there yesterday. Saw a lot of fun stuff I want to highlight with you guys. Took some notes and such. I want to have more time on a stream in the future. We'll share some clips and all kinds of good stuff from that. But got to jet off to work here, unfortunately, here in a few. But I appreciate you guys for tuning into this one, whether you watched on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. You guys on Facebook and Twitch, come over to the YouTube side, subscribe, get all this all these updates, that way you can get access to the podcast episodes we're talking about, pre-recorded videos, all that good stuff, in addition to just the live streams you'll find on Facebook and Twitch. But if you watch this live on YouTube or on the playback, hit the thumbs up button before you head out. That'll help us out a ton. If you didn't get a chance to chat here live, throw your thoughts in the comments. We'll respond there in text form. Always appreciate those interactions as we continue to try and grow the CRW community throughout Mountaineer Nation. Appreciate all you guys. Hope you all have a great Sunday, and hopefully we'll get some good basketball transfer news in the near future, and we're starting to get football transfer news, here in the next couple of weeks as well. So we'll see how that pans out also, and we'll keep you up to date on both of those portal classes and this 2026 WVU football recruiting class as it unfolds as well. Excited about the addition of Jryon Hughley at the quarterback position for this class, though, that's for sure. Appreciate you guys. Have a great Sunday. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.